Hey 3DMJers, this is Andrea Valdez, and you're listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. Today, I'm talking to Alberto Nunez and Jeff Alberts all about the foundations and goals of bodybuilding on a very literal scale. We'll discuss what you're visibly and subjectively judged on, how we coach for it, and how you can maximize it in accordance with your competitive organization's criteria. The guys will also discuss how they help their athletes to choose the right division, and how they alter training programs based on physical progress, training history, competitive class, and much more. This show is required listening for first-time competitors, and it'll also be invaluable for seasoned athletes looking to get the most out of their physiques, and coaches who have to consider various organizations, divisions, judging panels, and posing variations for a wide array of athletes. As always, if you have any feedback or comments on this particular episode, go to 3dmusclejourney.com or to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/team3dmj and leave it under podcast number 155. Let's get into it. Here's Judging a Physique with Alberto Nunez and Jeff Alberts. For the listeners, we're laughing because we can't manage to start our podcast correctly. This is our second try. Fourth try starting timing and our second try with the video, but we're here.
Yeah, and this is like podcast number what, 155?
Yeah, 155.
And we're getting it slowly.
We're figuring it out slowly. So today is going to be different because usually on this show, we talk about what it hashtag takes to be a bodybuilder. Be that the tools, the coaching, the mindset, the tactics, whatever. But today we're actually going to talk about the body itself. We're going to objectify ourselves in the nicest way possible. Because bodybuilding at the end of the day is sort of like a dog show. Berto, will you tell people about what I mean by that?
It's always funny to say all these things again, even though you said that.
We did just say this.
Right,
but it was, this one's going to be better. Bert's going to tell us a story, and it's going to be better than 5 minutes ago when we heard it and forgot to press record.
We should have just switched it, and Jeff does my talking points, and I do yours or something like that. But
no, we can do it.
Yeah, I heard this for the first, it was like 10 years ago, actually.
Oh my God, was it 10 years ago?
Training with Eric, and yeah, I was in the middle of kicking back dumbbells when a friend of ours, actually, eccentric dude.
For the record, I think he raises reptiles for a living.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
He actually has a very important job, this fellow. He extracts venom from them.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I didn't know why he raised reptile lettuce.
Yeah. So he's, I guess, one of the few guys in California that does that. So super important job. And he educated me on this particular day because I hadn't thought about bodybuilding being a human dog show. And it does make sense because, hey, personally speaking, in my experience, most dogs are great, but...
We are dog people on this show, for the record.
But Paul couldn't win, a dog show. He's terrific at being a dog, but there's this criteria for, this breed, there's this criteria for that breed. And that's what bodybuilding is. It's you try to satisfy the criteria as best as you can. So yeah, it's a human dog show, basically.
Jeff, would you agree? Or is there another analogy you'd like to use?
I was thinking about my dogs, and I'm like, they're not going to win any dog show. One's kind of a mutt, and I'm like, how can we make him cute and fit the part?
Well, he can't. They don't have... Oh, God, we're about to start into this whole thing about how I think you have to be purebred. Anyways.
But no, I agree.
It's not a dog show in that way.
Because, you get those debates, because we like to call our bodybuilders athletes. And I know some people are like, what do you mean? They're not athletes.
Oh, yeah, it's not a sport.
Bodybuilding show is not an athletic endeavor. So when you're on stage, yeah, it's not like you're not shooting a 3-pointer or slam dunking or anything. But yeah, I kind of consider it more as a show. So.
Pageant, if you will. Some people get mad about that too. But on the flip side, if you've ever practiced posing, that shit's hard.
Yeah. It's a skill.
For sure. A physical skill.
When even the training, like athletes, former athletes will get into it and they're like, that's the toughest thing I've ever done. And they've done some pretty rad things. So it's hard for me not to call bodybuilders athletes when, especially the ones who are like at that point where they're really pushing, to the limits of their own bodies.
That's how I kind of see it. I mean, we're training. It takes a skill to train, especially when you're in deficit. It's a skill to diet. I mean, there's a lot of skills involved to get to the show, but the show itself is not like an athletic competition. But the things you got to do to get there, I would say, kind of classify it as. Yeah,
I mean, it's
you're more or
definitely
less an athlete.
training.
Yeah.
It's definitely training. It's definitely It's like to get to the end goal, you train like any athlete in any sport trains. It's just the actual way it's judged is not necessarily performance based unless but again, we have seen shows be won or lost by terrible or great posing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure.
That's happened to me.
I have definitely placed higher than I should have for that thing.
Or there's times where it feels like a sport, like because you're up there so damn long because it's a good lineup. Like that's like you feel like you're actually competing when you're like 15 minutes into your pose and you're like, oh wow, like all the stuff I've learned, I need to keep showing that even though I'm running out of gas here,
Yeah, and this isn't just for like new people either. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I signed up for my first bodybuilding show I don't know, like 6 weeks after starting to train like a bodybuilder, and I literally didn't know what was happening. Like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the show website and look at this web page of rules, and I was already signed up for the show and didn't really know what some of it meant. So that sucks. I needed help with that. I hired someone to help me with that for like one of the show promoters was doing a posing clinic or whatever. But then also like, I don't know, like how would this conversation be beneficial for not just a beginner? Like how are we going to help it? I guess how we coach it, right? So let's identify like some of the things that we know that some people miss when they think bodybuilding. It's not just like he's jacked or he's not, or she's jacked or she's not. And then we'll talk about like how y'all coach that stuff, how y'all improve that stuff.
I think probably we talk about, the aspects of what actually makes a successful physique athlete. Like when you're on stage, what are the judges looking for?
Yeah, let's start with bodybuilding. Like actual, the division of bodybuilding. Will you list him out for us, Jeff? That's the easiest one. Okay, why do you say the easiest?
Because I think especially on the natural side is like all the attributes, it's like just fill them out to the, like no one's going to get docked points for being too lean, or too muscular. It's just like get carried away with it as much as you can when it comes to the criteria, basically. So, it's really straightforward. Like for me, like for example, it's just like, every off season's like, what am I going to do? Put on as much muscle as possible, where there's other divisions where like sometimes, you hear that they tell girls like, hey, maybe ease up off this just a tiny bit, because you look a little odd up there. So yeah, it's easy because it's the most extreme of the divisions.
The most extreme and the most objective.
Yeah.
Like the judges have what criteria, Jeff?
Size, like Berto said. I mean, the more muscle you have, I mean, the better off you're going to be. I mean, so size is high priority. Symmetry, meaning how well your physique flows, like your upper compared to your lower, your legs in comparison to like your torso size. Just making sure that all musculature is well balanced. Like you don't want any, let's say, flaws where you kind of look at your physique and go, okay, his back is small in comparison to maybe his front, or it's in comparison to his lower body. Like the more complete you are, the less flaws I should say you have, the more successful you're going to be. So I would say out of the three main criteria would be size, symmetry, and then conditioning, like as far as how lean you are. Like those are the three main aspects. So then from there, it's like, okay, so if you're complete in all three, then most likely you're going to be very, very competitive. But if you're lacking in one of those or two of those, then yeah, you're going to have a tougher time. So when we talk symmetry, I mean, a lot of times it comes down to genetics. Like you might have someone with a small waist, such as like Berto or myself. We have pretty small waists. So we're going to naturally just going to have an advantage over someone who's, let's say, a little more blocky. And I hate to throw Brad under the bus, but
he throws himself under the bus. You can throw me. I'm blocky.
That's why I'm comfortable talking about Brad, because he's not going to get offended. So, his waist is a little on the blockier side. So when you have someone who's small waisted, then their extremities are going to look that much more impressive. You're gonna have broader shoulders, more flare to the quads,
or it's gonna appear that your shoulders.
The illusions are gonna be like, okay, you look bigger than, let's say, someone with a blockier waist. Unless that person, like Brad, he has to kind of make up for it with conditioning. So whenever he was prepping, it was like, okay, let me get as shredded as humanly possible to make up that deficiency. And what's interesting too is like you can take Brad, put him in one lineup, and he might not do too well, but you put him in a totally, completely different lineup, and he might like be the standout. So it's kind of like boxing. When you look at boxing, you think like, oh, Mike Tyson can beat this other boxer, but then when they get in the ring, it's not that case. Or you take Mike Tyson, you put him with a different boxer, and he might lose to that, but he's beating someone else. So it's about matchups a lot too.
Yeah, good point. So you could bring your best to the stage. Someone shows up and they're just better than you. You can win a show one weekend, lose it the next.
Symmetry is so ambiguous. Like it's hard. Like you have to see it enough. It's like actually my mom had like she can pick up on symmetry now because she's seen enough shows. And I forgot her term, but basically it's the translation to English is like it looks cool. And that's basically what symmetry is, because it's like independent of size and what conditioning to an extent. Like you got to have yourself a little muscle and like, hey, don't come in like 15% body fat. Like someone who's very symmetrical, it's just gonna sit differently on that skeletal frame. So it's one that you kind of have to develop a little knack for, but I think if it looks like an X, that's probably the closest I can. And this goes for not just
X from like
like I call it
like one corner of your delts to the corner of the opposite knee.
So
when they're in a front relaxed pose,
like your shoulders are like point A, point A to point B from left to right. Your waist is C, so you go A to C. You're gonna create that taper. The same thing with your quads. Like you have point A and point B's flaring out way out past your waist. It's just the illusion, because your eyes, most people probably won't realize this, but they just kind of do this naturally. Like when you're looking at a physique and if you see a small waistline and you see, let's say, these broad shoulders, you're in a sense comparing. You're seeing the contrast between that. So it just automatically it's going to look superior than someone who has not as
in this
good
sport.
of taper.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the record, we're not saying this makes you a better or worse human. We're not saying it's ugly the other way. It's just for this sport, which is essentially a show, a human dog show.
Well, it's just like when you look at painting too. Like you look at a painting on a wall, your eyes are like comparing different things. There's always like some highlight of a painting. Like even the one behind you, Andrea, you're like seeing those three different colors and you're like, okay, your eyes are kind of looking at that and comparing because there's contrast there. So if you have, let's say, a wide waist, blocky waist, shoulders aren't going out as far as the waist. They're kind of blending together. There's not as much contrast. So naturally, it's like you're not going to see those differences there.
Yeah. It's like in Baby Got Back, but it's like, what does he say? 30. Man, I should know. Berto, the measurements in Baby Got Back.
Oh, yeah. That is something. 30-something.
Yeah. But it's like that. Like you want wide, narrow, wide, essentially. And that being shoulders, hips, quads.
Yeah.
And even within like a specific like muscle belly, like you could take two shoulders that are like equally as developed, but that one is just like more symmetrical. It's just prettier in the way it sits. And I think at that, like, you can see the obvious X frame, but then like, man, who's Mackie, I think, has like the best symmetry in natural bodybuilding.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's like, yeah, standout. You look at Valentina Zuga too.
Oh yeah.
It's just like tiny waist, and it's just hard to deny just the natural beauty just looking at it, because you got this small tiny waist with these broad shoulders. And you can what's interesting is that you like I consider myself to have pretty good symmetry, but standing next to those guys, it's almost like I look average. So it's when you get on a high level as far as like as far as the men's competitive bodybuilding, like that symmetry can go a long ways, because when you get to that
And
level,
women's in
yes,
bodybuilding division, yeah.
pretty much, yeah, because the size is very similar from one bodybuilder to the next at that level. So it comes down to like, okay, how well does this physique flow? A lot of it's genetics, and then also too, the conditioning level can change things as far as that symmetry too. So the leaner you get, it's going to make your waist look even smaller. If you hold on to your muscle too, you're going to make your quads look bigger, your delts look broader. So that, like, again, having the complete package, those three, like symmetry, size, conditioning, if you have it all, it's hard to deny.
Yeah. Should we stick to that? Should we go through all the divisions? I mean, we can just quickly.
We can scan through a few, but I think they tie in. I think just presentation becomes a little bit more important, and I think things can just get a little softer, but it ends up being kind of the same thing, especially the longer the divisions hang around.
Literally applies in every division at a bodybuilding show.
A bikini gal, you're like, oh, she could do like figure if she wanted to.
Yeah, and conditioning does, right? Conditioning should be as hard as possible. Then you have like male physique / female figure, which can be, depending on your size, you might want to be a little conditioned or super conditioned, right? And then bikini, you can easily over condition. It should be, according to the criteria.
You can even over condition, I think, in bodybuilding too.
True.
Like you can get so conditioned where as far as the process of getting there. So let's say you're going through a very invasive process and you're getting super shredded at the expense of losing some lean tissue, then yeah, you might be super conditioned, but then it probably can hurt your overall size and even your overall shape if you're looking flat up there. So it's all about kind of blending all three. So there's been some instances where I've actually kind of swayed people away from getting extra conditioned because of that. It was going to hurt the overall picture.
Right. And especially if like maybe they don't have as much mass going into the cut, then getting too lean just makes them look even smaller.
Because if they get it right, like it will enhance what they have, but at the same time, you're like, ooh, do I want to lose this? Because if I lose this, I'm in trouble, It's
funny how conditioning, it's like the only, bodybuilding is the only sport that calls that, like every other sport, conditioning is like aerobic work, like, plyos, whatever, core strength, like all that stuff, right? I don't know, it's something I used to, when I was first starting, I would try to explain. It's like, it's another thing that people freaking hate about bodybuilding for no reason.
Yeah, when you're lean, you don't want to,
You actually don't want to condition the way that other sports condition. I know, it's crazy. Doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. And then symmetry too, like that's not a, symmetry doesn't mean like your right arm is bigger than your left arm. Although I guess it can if that was weird. I mean, but on most healthy individuals, I don't want to say that. Most people don't just train one arm. There are...
I was going to say there's a lot of people, though, that kind of like have insecurity, because I would say 99% of us, we on one side or the next, we're not identical. Like my left arm is not the same as my right. My left bicep peaks more than my right. My right triceps, the back head is much thicker than the left one. My right quad is more of a standout than my left. So there's always going to be some type of discrepancy there. And I think a lot of people have insecurity about that. Hey, I get this a lot. Hey, should I train unilaterally because of it? And it's really most of the time, the only person who's really noticing is ourselves. Like
Yeah.
I there's hardly a time where I look at one of my athletes and go, "Oh gosh, your one side is way off. We need to make sure we're doing like 10 more sets on that side, or something like that."
Yeah. It's
So
like
it's
unless you're
usually
coming back from injury or something where like it atrophied or
yeah, because every time like an athlete like tell me like they check in or something, hey, I'm a little off here or there, and I'm like, I have to like blow their picture up and like really look hard at and to really kind of notice it, and I'm like, when you're up on a judging panel. And unless it's like really glaring, if it's just minor, like it's common, like everybody experiences, the judges aren't like, hey, let me look at Alberto and look for his flaw. Let me look for that discrepancy there. They're just basically analyzing him, his symmetry, muscularity, his size, and they're comparing it to the other athletes next to him. They're not like, in particular, hey, I need to look at Jeff's abs because Jeff's abs have a big split in it. It's not
because
like
they
they're
do.
going to. Because they do, yeah. And that's like the one thing, like I could say on my physique is the biggest flaw is I have that big split in my abs, and that's nothing to do with injury or anything like that. It's just the way I was born. My whole family has that. So it's a slight insecurity. I think about it, but I don't choose to think about that my entire prep. I'm like, hey, let me focus on the other things that I got going on for me. Let's improve my symmetry. Let's improve my size. Let's try to get more conditioned. Let's practice my posing. So that way, my entire physique from top to bottom is being presented at its best. So a lot of times, like I said, these little discrepancies we think about, it's like, nah, that's not really what the judges are looking for. They're not looking for, hey, a little bit of loose skin that you might have on your lower stomach. Like if everything you got outside of that is where it needs to be, or it's close to be, or it looks good, no one's going to notice those little small imperfections.
Right. Because everyone's going to have them pretty much somewhere here and there. And then for, man, I like Berto mentioned the I guess we actually could say smaller, like as you move down in the size requirements for a physique. So as you go from bodybuilding, so for men, it's like bodybuilding, then classic physique, then male physique. Is that accurate? And then there's not a fourth one now? No, classic physique's the new one. Right? It used to just kind of be the two. And then there's, for females, it can either go from bodybuilding to some call it fit body, some call it female physique. There's different things. And then figure, and then bikini. So as you move down that line for both, like I said, size the requirement's not so high, but what does become more important is the subjective look, which we try to coach. We do the best we can. There's criteria, but it's like at the end of the day, like when you get all the way down to bikini, they're like beauty is like your hair, your makeup, your like those things matter. Your walk matters a little more. Your stage presence, your like attitude, like sass level. All this stuff that it's like I don't know how to judge it.
It's all part of the presentation, though.
Yeah.
Like
okay, yeah.
I mean, I'm not a bikini athlete, obviously, but I mean, if I don't know how to walk in heels, or my hair's not done, or my makeup's not done, or I'm not wearing the right suit, I mean, that's all going to impact the entire presentation. It's going to impact my physique. It's going to impact probably confidence level or what have you. So the presentation isn't going to be there. So it's not like the judge are going to go, hey, those are the wrong heels. I mean, they'll notice like, okay, something doesn't look all the way right. So in comparison to the other athletes, it might be a knockdown because the athletes have everything more complete. So same thing when we're looking at posing too, depending on, it could be any division really. Like if you're doing the small things that make you stand out, even though let's say the next bodybuilder to you is maybe 90% on, maybe just a little bit off with their posing, you're going to stand out more so because you have everything on point.
Yeah, and sometimes standing out's good and sometimes it's not. Like if your posing's, we've seen some bad posing that we're like, oh, I can't stop looking at this person, but it's not good. I'm just saying.
Well, that could be considered bad posing then,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean like when you say stand out, it's like sometime like
meaning like let's say you're hitting, I don't know if you're a guy, front double, I use this example all the time. If you're doing a front double bicep, let's say one guy has their thumbs tucked in, another guy with their thumbs are are out of their hand, like they're just sticking out. And I remember like teaching Eric how to pose back in the day. He's like, Jeff, it's just thumbs. What's the big deal? Like the judges aren't going to notice thumbs. I'm like, the judges, again, they're not going to look at the thumbs and go, oh gosh, I'm looking for some bad thumbs. But if the guy next to you is looking just polished and you have like these little things like your thumb sticking out, judge isn't going to say, hey, that's bad thumbs, but he's going to look at the next guy and go, that looks a lot cleaner. If that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, it does. Okay. So what happens if, like, size is size. I think that's what we talk about all the time on this podcast. So we know, get big.
Especially natural, like physique sports. Yeah. I think it's in our best interest, regardless of division, to like just maximize what you got. Like I think that's going to work for 99% of people, because picking your division, I think more than anything has to do with like what you identify with as a athlete. Like how do you want to present your art on that day? But size wise, like I've seen some men's physique guys that it's like you could do bodybuilding, you know?
Figure, yeah.
I've seen some bikini girls, the same thing. It's like you want to go do the pro figure while you're here. I mean, like
that's the only division where I've seen people actually. And only in some shows, sometimes it works out in their favor, but the bikini is the only division where I've heard the critique of a judge that is like, you're too muscular or too hard for this division. But every other division on both sides of it, I've never seen size hurt somebody, including figure.
Yeah. I think with, the non-tested federations, part of that was just, I think the options were there, like because of health concerns. But that's not necessarily anything we have to worry about. Not at least not when it comes to like what division we decide to compete in, right? So some of the divisions almost don't make sense. I think like my classic guys out there, it's like just do the bodybuilding because you're gonna get more poses. It's more objective, and there's a lot of good guys out there that we can use in our division. But again, like. Generally speaking, like if you want to be a physique competitor, it's like regardless of your division, like let's try to maximize everything, and that usually works well.
Really quick favor, guys. If you enjoy these shows and have been a listener for quite some time, we would really, really, really appreciate it if you could take the time to give us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcast app may be. Having lots of ratings and audience feedback makes our show become more visible across multiple platforms, and it supports our mission of helping as many people as we can to be the best athletes, coaches, and lifting enthusiasts that they could possibly be. So if you're not driving and wouldn't be dangerous, pause this thing right now and give us an honest review over on your podcast app, and we would love you even more than we already do. Thanks for taking the time, and we hope you enjoy the show.
How do you guys, I was gonna say, how do you guys help someone who's like not sure of what division to go in? Like how do you guys base that? I mean, I have the way I kind of do it, but I kind of want to hear what you guys think about that.
I'll go. I kind of, what Berto said hits me a lot, or like when coaching, and I know for myself, identity is a big part of it. Like what do I see when I see this division or the girls, like photos of girls in this division, do I think like, wow, that's beautiful. That's what I want to look like. Or not, like I remember when I didn't know there was a difference, because my first show was NPC because I was in Oklahoma and that's what was there. And I didn't know any different. The people at my gym were doing that one. The guys in my grad school department were doing that one. So I did that one. And when I, again, didn't know any different, look at the NPC website and I see female bodybuilding. Now, again, I didn't know the difference. And I looked at female bodybuilding and I was like, no, I don't want to look like that. Because they were huge, and I knew, okay, that's not me. And then I saw bikini, and just personally, when I saw some of those poses that didn't feel, I wouldn't be comfortable doing some of those poses on stage. But the figure division, I saw it, I'm like, wow, that in my opinion and my eye at that time, I was like, that's beautiful. It's still ladylike. I get to wear sparkles. And it's impressive. It's really impressive. I remember Ava Cowan was the the top of the game in the NPC figure at that time. And that's the photo I saw. And I was like, let's shoot for that. Never got there. But yeah, that was the look that like of the three that were actually, I think maybe Female Physique had just started and Daniel and Bailey had just won it about this time. And I was like, it still seems unattainable and too big for me in my brain at that time. And it wasn't even a little bit in any of the other three divisions. It was like, this one feels right. It looks right. That's what I want to go for. And I find that most of the athletes that I coach that decision to have a similar gut reaction. And then secondarily, they think, or not secondarily, less often, but sometimes what comes in is, what will I be the best at? You know? And I'm sure that's what you guys get a lot too, which we'll hear Berto talk about next. But is I'm not big enough for this, or I'm too small for this, or or this seems possible and this one seems way too far out there. There's no way I could do that. And then some people move up the ranks over time, right? Like they need to go to a division where they don't feel like they're going to be too small, and then they get on stage or look at the crowd and they're like, oh, I guess I could have done the bigger one, and like maybe next season or whatever.
I like your answer. Like, what gets you excited to do this?
Yeah.
So which people do you follow? And, you know, seeing them do their thing inspires you. I think that's a good place to start. And I'll even let them go with that, even if, hey, it's like your first season, you might be just a little bit out of place. It's, you know, you're more likely to really put your all into it and enjoy it a whole lot more if you know, that's what you're going for. So.
Yeah.
That's basically what I encourage this as well. Just because, you know, often the question is coming from a place of where do I fit in as far as where am I going to do well at?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily aligns with what you actually want to do. Or some people think there's stepping stones, like bikini leads to figure leads to bodybuilding, or men's physique leads into bodybuilding. It's not necessarily the case, like you said, but it was like I've seen some men's physique guys. You're like, wow, they're actually better than the bodybuilder as far as more muscle, just as conditioned, and even more symmetry. So it's just more or less, I think, where your heart is. I think that's where I like to send people, hey, what gets you very motivated? Where's your passion at? Let's go for that. And then once you experience it, and it's like, okay, did you like it or didn't you not like it? And maybe there's something else that you want to try. But that's more or less, kind of my thoughts, because I know I get that a lot. You know, a lot of people think there's a stepping stone to that, and I don't think that's necessarily true all the time.
No, I think I would do worse in men's physique. Like, I'd be pretty bad at men's physique. Like, there's just no way around that. Like it's supposed to be the step down, and if I went there, I'd be just another dude on stage, I feel.
Well, it's like that post when I put, like, I had my, because when we did the posing guide, we took those snapshots of me and my board shorts, and I said, hey, maybe 2021, I might give this a try. And it was kind of a mixed bag. Like, some people were like, yeah, if that's what you want to do it. And there's other people like, no, you're a bodybuilder, you shouldn't be doing that, you don't have the look. So it's kind of like, for me, it's like, I've never tried it, so how do I know if I like it or not like it? It's definitely not my personality. Like, men's physique doesn't fit my personality.
See, and I think that matters.
Yeah, like, it would definitely put me out of a comfort zone. Like, I would be super nervous probably doing it, no doubt, because I'm not like, that division, in my opinion, requires a little bit more, like you call it, like sass, a little bit more
showmanship.
Showmanship, you know, and that's kind of not me. I'm more like of an introvert. I'm quiet. So bodybuilding, it's like, to me, I kind of see it as, okay, I got all these poses. It's a skill to hit all these poses. So I have like an athletic mindset, kind of like it takes me back to when I was playing Little League and all that. I was like into the zone when I was playing a game. Like, that's how I am on stage. I get into the zone. So men's physique would totally put me out of a comfort zone. But you never know until you try something, though. I still don't have my mind made up, though, whether I'm going to do it or not.
And you could do both. Yeah. I mean, you know, whatever. I will say that once I moved to California and started attending a lot of natural shows and got to watch them, that I very quickly was like, oh, I want to do bodybuilding. But then I never competed again. But that second season that I did figure in natural organizations and saw the female bodybuilders there, that's actually what I would prefer to do. And for me, it's only because, like, like Berto said, there's more to do. Like I can do all of the poses. And then with me personally talking about what we're suited for the other way, like physically, I have a thicker waist. I have a better lower half than most, and that doesn't quite matter as much for figure. So I like did well in figure, a lot of like seconds and third places or whatever. But I think like we're talking about, I'm pretty sure, and from the judges, I've heard that my presentation helped me a lot. Probably comes from my gymnastics and cheer background, but my posing and presentation helped me with the physique that's not quite built to win figure shows, no matter how lean I got. But in bodybuilding, there's an opportunity to maximize the lower half, which would be more for me. But yeah, it's also like what you're exposed to. Like I said, all I saw was NPC female bodybuilding, and that was terrifying. But then I saw a natural show, and I was like, oh, that might be okay in 5-10 years, or like when I get bigger.
No, it's rough because I think you go back 10 years, there was less options. You just got to choose like novice or open. You go back to Jeff's time, it was just female bodybuilding, male bodybuilding. So there's more.
To Jeff's time.
That's true. That's very true. It was bodybuilding, and that was it. Bodybuilding, female and male, and then of course they had like masters and juniors, but that was it. So
how long were those shows? Like an hour?
It depends on the show, size of the show. Like some were big,
Yeah.
but yeah, they weren't as long as they are now. I tell you that. They were probably like from a time component a lot more enjoyable back then because it's easier to sit through a 2-hour show than it is a 6-hour show. You know.
Yeah. Can I ask y'all? Do we like our coaches right now? It's for male bodybuilders, but I know that we have obviously athletes in all the divisions and all the sexes and all the things. But do y'all ever get questions from like your female bikini athletes about how they would do things? Like if y'all do anything different for them, or do they feel like they should or shouldn't be training the same way as a bodybuilder and things like that? Their first few check-ins with you?
Jeff?
Go ahead, Berto. Go ahead.
Shoot. I don't train them all that differently, I'd say. At a certain point, there's still that personal aspect, right? Where it's like, I just want to see everything developed, you know?
Yeah.
And they just generally like the look for themselves.
Like I know that, I guess I know the answer is that we treat them as, I know that our athletes are athletes and we treat them, like you said, individually, but like, it's a fear of a lot of people in the fitness industry. Like in our, I'll get DMs on like, or emails, and I know Melissa, our athlete intake admin, will get questions about whether you guys handle smaller females or whatever. And it's not so much do you do anything different, it's more like, do you ever get fears from them?
You know, it's funny that they come to us and they ask that because I feel it's like they know that we have the skills to get there, and it's more so like, but are you guys willing to? Because I know that, you know, like that's what it sounds like half the time. But like, yeah, no, we treat them like any other bodybuilder, because it is under that bodybuilding umbrella. And I'd say the only difference is like certain divisions are going to have just certain muscle groups that do stand out a little bit more. So like, for example, like if you're doing bikini, it's like I'll probably have you do like direct glute work in some way, probably hinge in some way 3 times a week instead of like the normal, like 1 or 2 times. If you are a men's physique, it's like, you know what, like, unless you're just really born with these like really nice, like round delts, it's like I think delts in that class are actually even more important than in like men's bodybuilding, because you're always in that like silhouette pose. So I think you take that into consideration, because there is, I think every like men's bodybuilding, like a big part of it, it's like it's one from the back. Like no matter what's going on with those front poses, it's like, all right, let's just wait to see like what like the back double bicep and that back lat spread looks like, and then we can confirm what we suspect. So So you do have, you do side with a few specific muscle groups, like based on the division, but in general it still looks like something, that any other bodybuilder, like I can do one of my female bodybuilders like training program and I'd still like relatively look the same. Maybe my butt be a little bigger, but that's it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Pretty much same. Like that's probably the main thing that might be a little bit different is just that the way I kind of structure their training. Like if it's a bikini athlete, it's like, okay, like Berto was saying, they're probably like doing hinging like at least 2 times a week, maybe even 3. And then I'm probably maybe even adding some medial delt work in there as well, like more. Because again, you're trying to create that taper, that silhouette, small waist, hips, glutes, delts. So a little bit more of that. But as far as like the principles, like the dieting principles and all that, it's not too much different. It's basically the same as we would any division. You still need to get, lean. Bodybuilding obviously a little more extreme, but you still got to get relatively pretty damn lean across all divisions in order to showcase all that musculature. So the principles of like the contest prep itself is very similar.
Yeah. It's interesting though that we brought it like at the beginning, we were like symmetry is the same for everything, but then the answer to this question is like, actually, it is a little bit different.
A little disproportion is encouraged, right? A little bit.
Yeah. Like for male physique, I mean, I think some guys get there too because like you don't want to be like the meme, but it's true. Like a lot of guys just don't train legs the way they train their upper body. And
here's a good thing to talk about. So this is something that like I get like men's physique guys, they'll come and say, well, I don't have to worry about legs too much. So let's load up the upper body. And I'm like, well, just because you wear board shorts doesn't mean you can't see your legs.
Yeah.
Like you can still see the silhouette. You can still see the curvature of your quads. You can still see your glutes. Like if you have no ass and no legs in those board shorts, you're gonna look like a top, right? But if you have like a small waist, these broad shoulders, and you can see the silhouette of these flowing quads and glutes, you're gonna stand out. So I think it's still super important to train your legs, even though you got a pair of board shorts on.
Yeah. Last year's Mayhem winner in physique, he works with Brad now. Last name Lion. That's his IG name. But he's massive in a like great symmetry. But if you look at him, you wouldn't know what division he's doing. He said,
like certain poses, like if men's physique, if you're turned to the side, you got your shoulders twisted, right? Your waist is going to appear smaller because you got these broad shoulders. You're twisting your torso around. But at the same time, if you're standing sideways, and your hips are turned, well, if you have some nice glutes, they're nice and round, it's going to give the illusion of a smaller waist. So it creates more shape, more illusion. So in my opinion, just because you got board shorts on doesn't mean you should neglect legs or, hey, let me just train upper body 4 times per week or whatever and neglect the legs. Like you have to train the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it also gives you an opportunity too. Like if you neglect, let's say your leg training for 2 or 3 years because you're a men's physique competitor, and then someday you're like, I think I want to go to bodybuilding.
Yeah, catch up.
Now you got a lot of catch up work to do now.
Yeah.
So.
Truth. And then female, I was going to say female bikini, as though there is not a male bikini division that I know of, but
bodybuilding technically is, because that's what the male bikinis used to look like back in the day.
That's true. So, hey, they're coming back. The Speedos are coming back.
I know. I'm excited.
Oh, you're excited?
You mean real Speedos on a beach? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. It's very European, but it's also coming back in the States. The shorts are getting smaller again, Jeff.
I'm up for that. That's
right now in the off season.
Yeah, you guys made me do that posing seminar at 190 pounds at one time. Remember that? We didn't have no access to anyone else. Or like, just put them on and we'll figure it out. Yeah.
You definitely took one for the team. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
No, but yeah, at the smaller shorts are coming back, Jeff. Just so you know for your next beach trip.
Oh man, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
I'm like 205 pounds, and I'm not.
Give the ladies what they want.
I don't know.
Give the people what they want.
Curvy men.
Yeah. Because you know what? It started with chubbies, the shorter shorts, and now they're getting even shorter. in America. Anyways, it's okay.
All right.
We'll get you some next time you come here. All right. What are we talking about? So that is good, right? That was a good coaching technique chat about how y'all, you don't neglect anything, but you might overload certain parts that tend to be more enhancing in the certain poses for the specific division. But y'all wouldn't start that. Do y'all start that year round or just like as we're approaching?
I think once you identify what where they're predisposed to growing, like, you know, they're, man, I have a handful of people, for example, who, like calves, I think they can be important in men's physique. Really important. I think more than bodybuilding. Where it's like, you know what, we really don't need a whole lot of calf work. Like we can just focus on the other things because you are one of those people, we all know them, like whose calves insert at the ankle. So it's like, we're fine, you know? So I think, yeah, you kind of let the physique marinate with something that's pretty symmetrical to start. And then certain things will grow really well and then other things not so much. And if it's one of those things you need a lot of, yeah, we get to work. And usually the athlete is all about being proactive because they know themselves that, yeah, you know, I need a big lat spread in order to do well in bodybuilding or whatever it might be.
Yeah, because I was going to caveat that. It's not like everybody, I would say, we say, okay, if you're a bikini athlete, every single one of them is going to be training glutes 3 times per week. Just that it depends. Maybe that's a strength already. So maybe they don't need it. Like maybe it's just twice. Maybe it's just once. Kind of just depends. So there's context to take into consideration, like for each individual. Also, too, you got to think about too, like if you're going to give someone like some hip hinging 3-4 times per week, you know, you want to make sure that they're durable enough, pliable enough to do that. You know, you don't want to just bust someone up just because, hey, I need to get this girl's glutes bigger. Let's just bust her up to do it. Like you got to be smart about it. I also take like what their life is like outside the gym as well. You know, what's their training time? How many days a week can they train? Time per training session, etc. So there's just a lot of context that I like to dive into before I just, you know, put everybody in a generalized one lump sum. Hey, every female is going to be training glutes 3 times per week, because I don't think none of the coaches on our team do that. They definitely take all that context into consideration before we like make a program.
Yeah. So it's like both the chicken and the egg or whatever. Like what's the goal? And also, are you already responsive in these particular areas, or like, are you set in this?
Also too, like if you're, let's say we get an athlete and we really don't have them for too long in an off season. So it's more or less, hey, we're just kind of getting them for a prep, you know, then you're only going to see so much improvement on a physique as far as building muscle in that deficit. So it might not make sense to, hey, let's throw glutes 4 times per week. Because it's probably not going to do a whole lot there. So it's just, again, context dependent. There's a lot of factors to kind of take into consideration.
Yeah. In terms of posing / poise / stage presence and all that stuff, when do you start asking that of athletes? Like how far out typically? Well, I guess it depends if they're new or seasoned, huh?
Yeah.
That's just generally, I like to start someone 3 to 4 months before the show date. If they're a little more green, then it might be 4 months out. And it might not even be like just like your typical, here's the posing guide, here, let's check you on a weekly basis through our video check-in, but let's jump on Skype.
Yeah.
Like I can not jump on Skype for about an hour and get someone really efficient versus, let's say, a whole month worth of check-ins. So it kind of just depends. And I'm getting choked up here.
Why are you crying?
He loves posing that much.
I love posing. It just gets me sentimental every time.
It's a beautiful thing. Bert, same-ish for you?
Yeah, and for people, because there's already a lot going on with prep. Like you've already complicated their bodybuilding a little bit more than it was, you know, just the week before, right? I just recommend, it's like, hey, you know what, if it's just 10 minutes a day, those 10 minutes a day, like really, really, really like add up. Like they do. And pretty soon, like even if you're not super excited about it, kind of half-assing it, like 3 or 4 weeks in, you're like, oh, this feels pretty good and I'm enjoying it. And I can see the difference that it's making. So I think just a little bit goes a long way. Yeah, like Jeff said, 3 or 4 months out from the show. It's hard sometimes because like you've done your training, you've done your cardio, you've fought your cabinets a few times that day already, and you've still got some posing to do. But a little bit goes such a long way, and I've noticed that with myself. Like whenever I do just a little bit, and I keep up with it, it's way better than like, man, I got a show in a month. Let's start like getting in these like 45-minute sessions in every day.
Man, you can't rush it. Like
no,
you can't wait.
Because you only have so much energy to go around that deep into a prep. So after about 20 minutes, you're gassed. Then all of a sudden, the rest of the session, you're just picking up bad habits.
And you're hungrier.
Yeah.
Damn it. Yeah. Do you guys, do you ever refer out, Jeff? I bet you don't with your male bodybuilders, but like have someone go to their local.
Yeah, I have a female athlete right now that's getting ready for a show, and at first she was going to do figure. That was what she was thinking, and then she's like, "Hey, there's some classes I'm going to go to. I think it was on a Saturday or a Sunday." So I'm like, "I encourage you, yeah, go get exposure because you're going to be in front of people."
Yeah.
And basically the posing coach there put her through some bikini poses, and she's like, "Hey, I actually like that, and it actually, in my opinion, looks better." So I'm like, "Roll with it. Let's go for it." But yeah, with bikini posing, I tend to like refer it out a little more because it's not obviously my specialty. Figure, I do pretty good job there. Figure, men's bodybuilding, classic, that type of thing. That's my wheelhouse. So unless if an athlete just wants to have more of that local exposure, like going to a posing class, I don't fight that. I'm like, hey, if that's what you want to do, I'm perfectly fine with it. Just know that if that's the route you're going to go, then I'm hands off, because what you don't want is to have 2 posing coaches at the same time, because posing can be subjective. So maybe Berto is having you pose a certain way. And then if I come in and say, hey, no, let's do it this way, then obviously there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. And what you want to be on stage is super comfortable.
Yeah.
So even if, let's say you go with a different posing coach and maybe it's maybe not as good, let's just say, but you're super comfortable with it, then you're better off on stage. Because if you're doing something that you're not comfortable with, unless it's just absolutely terrible, then you're going to be like a deer in the headlights up there. So yeah, if someone goes to another posing coach, like I don't get all butt hurt or anything like that. I'm like, that's totally fine, because again, you just have too many cooks in the kitchen. Then yeah, it's not going to turn out too well.
Yeah. Berto, do you do the bikini poses?
Personally, no.
Okay. So there's not a video of it anywhere in your camera roll. Okay.
I hope not. I hope that doesn't get out. Same as Jeff. And I think as time has gone on, like you just develop these small knacks for like the division. So every once in a while, I will suggest things like, hey, run this by your coach. It's like, and it's small things often. It's like, can we just do this with your wrist instead? And, but the major stuff, I think it's just a whole lot easier to have someone there in person. You can kind of like spin around them. And sometimes like you just need to grab a person and be like, no, just like do this, please. Cause like, you're just not getting it. One thing I didn't even think about is that, sometimes the sport itself, can be quite lonely. So like you go to these group classes and you can potentially make a bunch of, that's just an added perk, a bunch of like friends they're just as starving and boring as you.
Crazy
so
as you are.
Yeah, especially if it's your first time around, just getting that exposure, because it's nerve-wracking already just going to a show with no experience. Then all of a sudden you're up on stage in your suit and you're like, oh crap, now I got all these people staring at me. Or if you go to a posing class, you just get that exposure. I've even had some athletes where I actually coached them on the posing. They just attended the posing class, but didn't really necessarily take in the adjustments they were doing. They just wanted the exposure.
Just to be around it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
honestly, if you've never been on a stage, like there's a lot of people that they have it all down in their bedroom and at their gym maybe, and then you put them in front of a crowd and they just lose it. So I'm not saying that everyone needs to, but sometimes it might be good to be like, hey, family, watch me do my posing routine, or hey, I'm going to have 5 friends over, or I'm going to go to the, like you said, go to the class just to feel like I'm in front of people.
Yeah.
The shakes are so real sometimes. You can see it.
Good adrenaline too. Will kick in when you're up there. So I've had that happen a few times where you're just like
adrenaline you didn't even know you had at that point because you're so tired. You're like, whoa, I have this energy.
Yeah.
Well, also too, like I know I made the mistake where like, all right, I got my poses down super good. I practice them for 5 minutes at a time or whatever. And then like this one time they put you up for there for 10 minutes and I'm just like, like my muscles are just like hella fatigued, or it's like, I don't know. You guys
you know what's interesting? Probably a topic. Probably sorry, I'm changing the subject.
That's okay. I like it. Let's go.
But as far as like, because we're talking about divisions and like what we're looking, what the judges are looking for, etc. But you can actually change your physique a little bit acutely with your pump up.
Hey, good topic. Bring it in.
So, like for example, you know, if you're, let's say, men's physique competitor, and let's say you don't have the greatest delts, like you need improvement there, well, you could just bomb the shit out of them while you're pumping up and get a super pump, and you can actually obviously increase the size of them right there on the spot. So like sometimes I do a little, I'm a little strategic with certain athletes depending on, you know, what their strengths and flaws are, as far as like their pump up is concerned. And I do that myself when I pump up personally. Like my arms are a strong part, so I'm not like going to go ham on my arms. It's more like, okay, as a bodybuilder, competitive bodybuilder, like Berto said, when you turn to the back, that's where it's like, okay, that's where you need to be on. So I'm like focused more so on like my back, my delts, to create that illusion of taper and thickness. So you can be very strategic with your pump. That's something I wanted to point out.
Do you do like a test run? I mean, I know you know yourself, but like with an athlete, do you just have like a little protocol you like to give them, or
during peak week? Okay. Yeah, but I don't like test run it prior.
Yeah, you just know like
training.
Here's their body, and here are some places we'd like to get an
Let's
extra.
Focus on this when we're pumping.
Couple millimeters if we can.
Yeah.
Get a little flood there. Okay.
That's it.
It's not a bad. There's gonna be a bunch of bikini girls now like doing frog pumps, like as they like line them up.
I mean,
well, you don't want to do it so much that you can't walk though. That's the thing too. Like it's what's really important about your pump is that you don't forget you got to go out there and pose, and that takes a lot of energy. So you don't want to make it into like a full blown training session. Like I've seen athletes do that backstage where it's like, okay, yeah,
and that's how you guarantee the shakes.
You're going to be gassed. Yeah, you're going to be so gassed. So you definitely need to pace it and be strategic from a poise perspective as well.
Talk about poise, Jeff. What does that mean?
That just basically means being in control of yourself. You know, we think about the like the bodybuilding divisions where you got to tense your entire body. Like how many times have you seen guys up there and they look like they're doing a 500-pound deadlift because they're just trying to flex as hard as they possibly can. But I mean, if you were to just let off the gas a little bit, so instead of deadlifting 500, hey, let's deadlift 450. It's still heavy. It still takes energy. So same concept on stage. If you're hitting a pose at 85, 90% tension, you're still going to be flexed. Everything's still going to be visible, but yet you're going to have a lot more stamina endurance the deeper you get into, let's say, a prejudging. The only time I would say, hey, flex as hard as you can is like if you're at the tail end, they're calling most muscular shots. Yeah, squeeze 100% because you're going to look even more muscular because the blood pressure is going to elevate even more. You're going to get the nasty veins running through the chest, the form, and even into your head and all that good stuff that looks pretty crazy. And again, bodybuilding is extreme. So yeah, but for the most part, yeah, you don't need to flex as hard as you possibly can. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong on stage is they do that when they're posing. And it just like you can see it in their face. Their teeth are gritting. They look stressed in their face. So I can tell, I could just spot it right away. I'm like, if that guy just backs off just a little bit, he's going to look more polished, more in control of himself, look more professional up there.
Yeah. And so it needs to be practiced to like like how a 100-meter sprinter doesn't only do 100s. Like
Well, it's like a power lifter. I'm not a powerlifting coach per se, but I know enough to know that, hey, they're not going to be doing 1 rep maxes every training session.
Right.
Yeah. So when you're posing, it doesn't like it. A good way to look at it is like if you go to a, I don't know, if you go to like a theater, where actors like plays, they look super poised when they're up there. They're in control because they've practiced. They've practiced their lines. They practiced movement, what have you. So if you're in command like that, like you're trying to put on a performance, a controlled performance like that, then you're going to be better off for it. And
like you shouldn't have to think about it by the time you get on stage at all. It should be automatic.
Yeah. Well, it's just like because we're flexing, so we think we have to squeeze hard to things to be visible. And that's why I don't encourage people to practice posing like earlier than, let's say, 3 or 4 months out, because your body fat level isn't where it needs to be. So what do people generally do? Let me squeeze harder because I'm not seeing what I want to see.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing on stage. They have that same perspective. If I squeeze harder, people are going to see more. Or I'm trying to beat the guy next to me. So if I squeeze harder than him, then I'm going to show more. But it can backfire. That could actually be the opposite.
Yeah. So if you're lean enough, 85-90% should be fine. And if it's not, maybe you should keep dieting.
Yeah, it's just it. If you're shredded, like you're peeled, like it's not going to take a lot to see everything.
Yeah. What else is on the scoring card?
With the poise, what's I think a good way to describe it is just it's like your confidence, your swagger, and it's got to match you, and it's got to match your division. Like I hate smiling on stage. Like to me, smiling on stage, this is like it just makes me nervous. This is just flashbacks to like my school pictures. My mom's like, "You better like smile, okay?" So it's like, okay, take it, But it's just you want to look like calm, rehearse, like Jeff said, practice. Like I've done all the work to get here. So it's just a walkthrough, and you see it in varying amounts, but it does make a difference. And it shows up a little different on everybody. So like if you're doing bikini and it's like, this is how those girls are doing it. It's like, hey, like have your own brand. Like when you did your thing, Andrea, it was like straight up, like it was your own thing. Like, yeah, you were in character to an extent, but I'm like, yeah, that's Andrea right there. That's how she would do it. So, yeah, like Eric's got his own swagger when he's on stage. It's his way of doing it, But yeah, you want it to not look forced, and just like it's natural, because I've been doing this for months now,
Yeah.
Not so much forced, but you can tell when someone's not prepared.
Yeah.
Like you can see it, just facial expression alone can tell a story.
See, I like smiling.
Yeah. Like you don't have to see, like it's not like you have to smile, but you don't want to look like
in anything
you're
besides
like, oh, shit,
bodybuilding. Anything besides bodybuilding, you kind of have to. I'm trying to think, right? Think about it.
Well, I mean, just in general, like if I walk up to you guys off the street and I smile, it's inviting, right? Whereas if I'm just like I look like you're gonna think, what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with this dude? He's like looks all weird. He looks nervous. What's going up? What's up with this dude? So that's what the judges kind of can see. The judges, they're comparing your physiques, but they're also like that can be part of the presentation, your confidence level.
Yeah,
how well prepared you are. And I know Brad's been on the judging panel at some shows, and he even told me like, hey, this guy was looking like this, and it drove me yin yang. It was like just bugged him, and he in his mind he actually marked him down because of it, because of the way he was posing and things like that. So it can matter to some judges.
Yeah.
As far as,
I guess we got to always remember too that we say some divisions are more objective than others or whatever, but a judge, unfortunately, it's not like, for example, I was a gymnast growing up, right? And there is a code of points, and every skill has a certain value, and every deduction has a flat or a range of how much you should dock someone for doing these certain things, right? And unfortunately, bodybuilding is not like that. There isn't one governing body for everybody who's doing bodybuilding. There isn't the same score sheet for every organization. There isn't the same criteria to pass whatever test is needed to be a judge. So like we do the best we can to fit these criteria that are on the website of your organization. But at the end of the day, they're just people that have preferences, just like you said, like art. Like some people like certain paintings and some don't, and do the best we can.
Yeah, because what's interesting is like each federation on their, like you said, on the website has like each division's criteria, but then at some shows you go to, you're like, the person that won didn't necessarily fit that criteria that's listed on the website. So why did they win? Well, in comparison to all the other people that were on stage, they look better regardless.
Yeah.
So how it's hard to deny someone that looks better than everybody else, regardless of like even what the criteria is saying.
Yeah. And the most common way we see that is when very, very bodybuilder lean competitors win the what are labeled as the softer divisions, right? Like we see hella lean male physique competitors and hella lean bikini athletes win when the website definitely says that that's not supposed to.
You get that like that amateur guy who's like since 16, he's had like a fat-free mass like index of like 27, you know? So he looks like a man with like boys next to him. He's not even lean, but it's like...
Yeah. He's just that like the bellies are big, the size is there. Yeah, and they're just not as lean as they're supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get that a lot. You see on bodybuilding, the guy who's big, maybe not as shredded, but yet wins, and then the other guy's like peeled to the bone, and everybody's crying. Well, how did that guy win? He's soft. I go, yeah, but look at the symmetry and look at the size. It's hard to deny. And on the flip, that could be the opposite too.
Yeah.
So again, it's like looking at the whole physique as a whole. Like you got symmetry, size, and conditioning. It's a combination of all those things. And I would say like on an amateur level, you can get away with a little more flaws. Like if you have like a standout body part or two, sometimes that can pull you through. But the higher you get up in competition, it's more about who has the most flaws. Like if you're someone with the least amount of flaws, then you're going to be a little bit better off.
Man. And what's, have y'all seen like regional differences or like organizational differences?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's confusing to a lot of people because again, they're looking at these different federations, they're looking at the different divisions. They all have like different criteria they're stating on the website. So they're kind of basing how maybe they should be approaching their training or dieting or based on these criteria. But then when they get to the show, they're like, hey, you guys said this is what you're looking for. I have it. But yet, why didn't I do well?
Yeah. What's another one that's come up for me when I was coaching, because it was a little more straightforward when I was competing, and then now it's been like the last 4 or 5 years, right, where there's some divisions are doing away with male, or some organizations are doing away with female bodybuilding, and so they'll call it female physique, but then another organization has like female fit. It's like whatever's the step above figure. Some organizations you wear heels, some you don't. Some you do all the bodybuilding poses, some you only do like half. I mean, not the muscularity poses of bodybuilding, and some you don't. That division, I feel like, has been really worked. Those poor girls that are whatever is above figure, that might put you in fit body, that might put you in female physique, that might put you in female bodybuilding, depending on where you live. And sometimes that, you can practice, and then like they have. The muscularity poses are literally just like males, and some of the muscularity poses have like a feminine kick to them that not everybody knows about unless they like live there or know the promoters. It's crazy. It's hard.
And it's the judging is so subjective. I mean, this is probably, it's like a beaten horse, but I mean, it is. It's so subjective.
Yeah.
Like my experience at Worlds, I had a few judges give me as low as 4th, and then I had others that gave me 8th. Like that's a huge disparity. And online, when I posted that, like my scores, everybody, of course, like, how can they give you 8th? And it's like, well, maybe the judges that had me 4th had it wrong. Maybe I should have been 8th. It's so subjective. And on a competition of that that such a high standard and level. Like the differences between 4 and 8, we're talking like it's very small. Like we're
It
talking
almost
maybe
has
just
to be their preferences because y'all all are big. Everybody's conditioned. Everybody has good symmetry. And then it's like,
well, the thing too is like if let's say I'm a judge on the left side of the stage and there's a judge on the right side, you guys could be seeing two different shows. Because stage lighting plays a part. Like, you know, on one side of the stage, it might be darker than the other side. So maybe you're looking better on one side versus the other. Maybe the head judge isn't moving you around to get some fair shakes as far as like you being compared to different athletes. There's a lot that can go within the judging to like, there's a lot of context there. So that's why going back to like what we talked about in the beginning, like I consider the actual bodybuilding competition not an athletic event. It's more like a show because there's so much at play. You know, there's the lighting, there's, you know, the judging, there's the presentation, there's, okay, I might make sure my tan is on point. Like all these things go into this actual day and it's more like a show. You got to basically present yourself to your best. And that's basically, hey, let me make sure that all components are there. Symmetry, size, conditioning, presentation.
that's a really good segue to like a wrap up of the whole point of this being like, there are these criteria, but because of all the things we just talked about in the last 10 minutes, it has to be for you. It has to be about the experience leading up to show day. It has to be about things other than placing because of how crazy placing can be. And if you only tie your success or happiness in the sport to placing, which we said can be dependent on so many things, can be so subjective, can be different sides of the stage or the state or the country or whatever. It we do the best we can, but at the end of the day, like it is what it is. We brought what we could. That's all.
We're all still good dogs at the end, you know? Or we try to be.
Oh, yeah. That was an amazing quote. We need to get that on an Instagram
Can
square.
we put that on a square? Just no context, yeah.
Is it with a picture of a bodybuilder or a dog? Ooh, you could do one of those things where you put your face on a dog.
You know,
No, I
maybe
want the
this
dog's
one
face
goes
on
for-
my body.
Oh. Okay. But does that as a coach, I know it's hard when like you're like, we brought everything. We did everything we're supposed to do. You thought you were gonna win and you got fourth. That's it. Right?
I mean, it's like, again, it's so subjective, right? If you did everything in your power to be your best, like from a symmetry standpoint, like you maximize your potential from, you know, your symmetry, your conditioning, your size, your presentation, like you did everything you can. You know, the way I kind of see it now, yeah, I mean, I definitely want to do well on stage and want to place well. I mean, who doesn't? But I also know that I don't want to give my power like to the judges. Like I can respect the judges, their opinions, but I don't want them to be the one who has the final say as far as what defines my success. So if I'm tapping into my potential, then that's really all you can do. You know, it's out of your hands after that point. If you go into a show and you didn't maximize yourself and you get a shitty placing, then yeah,
or a good
that's all.
placing.
That's basically, it's on you, you know? So that's the way I kind of look at it now. Is like, I want to definitely make sure that at the end of the day, the power is mine as far as how I define my success. And, you know, basically I could kind of look at the last couple of seasons I've done that were in my eyes successful. Is like, okay, I maximize myself. There's nothing more I could have squeezed out.
Yeah. Alberto, give us go ahead.
Well, it was open-ended. Like when we started, it's like, how do you pick your division? And it's like,
Yeah.
so it works both ways because it gives you lose a little bit of freedom on this end, but as you start and decide where you want to go with your bodybuilding, it's about you and you. It is partially art. So it's like, how do you want to express yourself? You know, that should be a big part of it. It's like, like you should be your harshest critic at the end. And I think like viewing it from that way, I think it's whenever I've placed well, I've been, okay, cool. But more so it's like, what do you think, Bert? And then the other way around, like when I've done not so well, it's like, okay, that's how that went there, but let's have our own little contest in our head and let's go over what you think. And that's always, to me, it's like, it's my art. It's me expressing myself. It's my thing, it's my craft. So it always goes back to me first, and then everything else is like second. And it's a pretty distant second, in fact. And to be honest, I think taking an approach kind of like that just makes you way more effective, even at the part that you have the least amount of control over.
Yeah. Damn, y'all, those were really good parting words from both of y'all, I just wanted to say.
We're good dogs.
Yeah, I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all are good dogs.
Good boy.
What's going on, 3DMJers? Eric Helms here. Thanks for listening to our podcast. I just want to take a second to tell you about MASS, Monthly Applications in Strength Sport. This is a monthly research review that I put out with Greg Nuckols, Dr. Mike Zerdos, and Dr. Eric Trexler. We cover the most up-to-date, peer-reviewed research in the world of strength and physique sport that's directly relevant to your practice as a coach or an athlete. We provide our reviews in written format, but also, since you enjoy our podcast, in audio roundtable reviews where we discuss the research in depth. Finally, we also do video concept reviews where we cover a broader topic in video format for your learning. For fitness professionals, you can take quizzes on MASS content and earn continuing education credits for most of the biggest certifying bodies in the fitness industry. If you want to sign up and get a subscription, head over to 3dmusclejourney.com and click on the products tab. Thanks for your time, and thanks for listening.